Hey, what's up, View Youth? Hey, we are back with our weekly drop of today is just a teaching. We're going to do a teaching, and I'm actually going to answer a question that one of our students asked. She asked the question, how do I learn to be confident in my faith? I want to do something a little bit different over the next couple of weeks. I would love to hear your guys' questions, and at View Weekly, I'm going to be explaining something from the Bible from your guys' questions to help answer those. So make sure to jump on every Sunday at 7 p.m. for View Weekly. We love doing these things. A couple weeks ago, we talked about how to bounce back from failure. Not last week. I'm sorry. I'm 1 week off. A couple weeks ago, we talked about reconciliation with my friend John, and it was a great conversation that we were able to have. And so today, I'm going to be kind of unpacking a couple concepts of how do I learn to be confident in my faith. But before we get started, I want to remind you guys, every Tuesday, we do Tuesday Hustle until the end of school. So make sure at 7 p.m. every Tuesday, we still have Tuesday Hustle through a Zoom call. And then every week, we are doing View Weekly. We'd love for you guys to watch. If you can't, go to our YouTube page. Again, go to our YouTube page. This is going to be fun today. We're going to have fun. I'm feeling a little weird. I'm feeling a little spicy. Memorial Day kind of, got me a little shaky. So I might say some things that I'm like, just like that. But I want to remind you guys that we're going to be doing these things and just answering questions that you guys have. I got lost, so we're gonna jump right into it. Acts chapter 4. There we go again. Acts chapter 4, 17 through 20. I promise you, View Youth, we will get through this together because we're together. Acts chapter 4, verse 20. I'm going to read it. This is in the ESV version. But in order that they may spread no further among the people, let us warn them to speak no more to anyone in this name. So they called them and they charged them not to speak or teach at the name of Jesus. But Peter and John answered them, whether it is right in the sight of God to listen to you rather than God, we must be judged. For we cannot but speak of what we have seen and heard. I love that part. We cannot but speak what we have seen and heard. Noel, this is for you. We're going to talk about how to share your faith. And I'm going to jump into the first point that I have is how to share your faith. Number one, you have to have faith. I know, big concept. Here's what faith is. Faith is not understanding everything. It's not having all the knowledge. It's knowing the person of Jesus. Jesus is a personal God. He reveals himself personally to us. And a lot of times what happens is we have a hard time expressing or sharing our faith because we want to know everything, but it's not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what Jesus has done for your life. We have to have this confidence that God spoke to me. I remember my faith journey. I remember exactly where I was. I know exactly who I was by. I was at a church camp in 2010 in Olympia at a place called Black Lake when God revealed his love to me. I didn't know everything. I was not a Bible scholar. I was not a person that was intellectually understanding of every little nuance and thing that is in the Bible, because that will never happen. There's so many different stories and paradoxes and things that are in the Bible that we just don't understand. But in not understanding what that should do for us as young people is draw us closer to God, not draw us farther from God. God is outside of who we are. He's outside of time. They call it transcendent. He transcends time. And if we try to put God in a box, what will happen is we will get very frustrated, because here's one thing that I know. If you think that you know everything about God, it's not God that you understand. You'll never fully understand everything about God. And so when we're sharing our faith, we have to first know and stand upon our reality that we have experienced a touch from God. Because faith is personal. Hebrews 11:6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who diligently seek him." Faith is something that is not something that we obtain. It's something that draws our heart to understanding that there has to be more to life than what we see. It draws us into the person of God. It draws us into the questions of God. Here's another thing I just feel like the Holy Spirit is telling me. God is not afraid of your questions. God is not afraid of your questions. God's not like, "Oh my gosh, they just asked me that." God is not afraid of our questions. It's actually our questions that draw us closer to God. And so when we're sharing our faith, we have to have faith. There's this term in the Greek, it's called relativio. Relativio, it means to draw back the curtain. That means there's a curtain over our eyes of things that we do not see. And revelation is this word. It's in the Greek, it's relativio, and it means to draw back the curtain. God reveals himself distinctly in two specific ways. Theologians, people that would study God and study the origin of God, they call it general revelation. Romans talks about it as God reveals himself in his creation. In all of creation is displaying the mystery and the fullness of God. Just go outside for a minute, look up, look at all the trees, look at the mountains, and ask yourself, something had to create this. This is not by accident. The world, the earth, is God's domain. And it's his handprint is in every single little thing, revealing to us his nature so that we would draw near to him. The second thing is special revelation. It's this special revelation that God gives to people that are diligently seeking him. I like to say it like this, is general revelation is God's outside voice, and special revelation is God's inside voice, speaking specifically to your soul. It's drawing you into the heart of God. I love this quote. It's by a man named Abraham Cooper. It says, "There is no square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, 'Mine.'" I love that. Every square inch of creation was created by God and for God, for his glory. The second thing is how we're going to share our faith is we have to have a burden for souls. We have to have a burden for souls. Acts 20, verses 24, Paul says, "I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and accomplish the task that the Lord has given me, the task of testifying to the good news of Jesus." I can always tell when someone has encountered God because they have this ability, this fire in their bones to share about what happened to them. It's not about the facts, it's about the touch. It's not about knowing every little thing that's in the Bible. It's about having an encounter with Jesus that you cannot deny. When you want to share your faith, you have a burden for people that do not know him. When the Spirit of God fills you up, it draws you to people that do not know him. It does not put you in a little group so you're safe. It actually shakes up your world so that you would get outside your comfort zone and share the love and the hope and the grace of our God to people that do not know him. And if you do not have a burden, pray for one. Your God, he loves you. He wants to be with you. He wants to be with your family and your friends. All you need to do is say, "God, give me your heart for the people that are around me," and watch what God does. You will begin to develop a burden for those that are around you. The third thing is, if we're going to share our faith, this is my favorite one. Share your scars, not your successes. Share your scars, not just your successes. If you are scared to share your faith, you'll never share your scars. If you're afraid to share your faith, you'll never share your scars. You'll hide them. You'll walk with Jesus feeling like you have to hide what God has walked you through healing in. People need to know that our God shows us his scars. I want to show you this image. I was reading this the other day. In John chapter 4. Nope, I'm sorry. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's in John chapter 4. Jesus, after the resurrection, he goes to Thomas. And the first thing he does, because Thomas is doubting that Christ has been resurrected, which is one of the most foundational things that you, as a follower of Jesus, have to come to realize and believe, that Jesus is alive and resurrected from the grave. Without that, all of our Christian faith is wonky. We have to believe that Christ raised from the dead, and as he raises, we raise with him. And so Jesus comes to his friend and he says, hey man, look at these scars. Look at these wounds. Now, why would he do that? A lot of people think that it's for Thomas. Yes, it could be. But it can also be, I heard this the other day, it can also be the way in which when we get to heaven, we will recognize Jesus. Because let me ask you this. How are you going to know who Jesus is? Have you ever seen him? Have you ever smelled him? Do you know what he looks like? Have you ever personally seen the image of Christ? So if you come face to face with him, how are you going to know? John 20 tells us we'll see his scars. We'll see what he did for us. Because our God is not afraid to share his scars. Our God reveals his scars. I said it like this. He bears the scars of humanity so that we'll recognize our healing. The devil would never, I want you to hear this, the devil will never lower himself to showing you his scars. He will always reveal your scars. And Jesus always reveals his scars for you. You have to have the ability to share your scars. More people in our walk with faith need to see Christians that have been through a fight and have come out on the other side, not by their doing, but by the Christ who raised them from the ground, raised them from their addiction, raised them from their eating disorder, raised them from their suicidal thoughts, raised them from their addictions of pornography, raised them from abuse. Whatever God has lifted you from, do not be afraid to share that with others, because others need to hear your story. They need to hear the victory. Even if you don't have full victory, you're walking through victory. People need to hear that. And number 4, if we're going to share our faith, we have to reflect the image of Jesus well. I wrote this down today as I was having this thought for you guys. It's not God that people are rejecting. It's a bad image of God. Because when you come face to face with a loving, gracious, patient God that sent his one and only Son to the cross so that you would have life, when you come face to face with that type of love, there is transformation in your life. It's not God that people are rejecting. It's a poor image of God. If you are living a duplistic lifestyle, you are reflecting a poor image of God. Those things matter. Your friends are watching you. They're watching you go to church. Then they're watching you at a party. And they're saying there's not a lot of difference between your lifestyle and mine. So I don't want any place of the God that you say saves. I wouldn't want any place of that. I want to know that there's Christians out there that were dead to their sin and Christ raised them from the grave. Because that's the type of life that I need. I need to know that there's hope for people like me. Your friends need to know that there's hope for people like them. It's not God that they reject. It's a bad image of God. So if you're going to share your faith, you have to share a good image of God. You got to be kind. You got to be generous. You got to be willing to serve. You got to be willing to love people. You got to be willing to be slow. It's not God that people reject. It's a poor image of God. What kind of image are you sharing with your friends? How you live your life in those moments matters if you're sharing your faith. Number 5 is we have to use what's in our pocket. Another way to put it is you have to use the weapons that God's given you. What weapons do we have to share our faith? Number 1, we have God's presence and spirit. When you get around a follower of Jesus that loves Jesus and loves people and has been touched by the power of God through the power of their testimony, and they begin to share that, you cannot help but ask and think, there's something different about that person. There's something different about them. That's a weapon. It's called the presence of God. It's called the Spirit of God. The second thing you can do is you can be prayerful. What's another weapon? Pray for your friends. God moves people's hearts to repentance. We don't. We just plant seeds. We're just available. We're available witnesses. We're witnesses to Christ and his love. Number 3 is one of the biggest ones, I think, is joy. Joy only comes from God. Happiness comes from the world. Joy comes from God. A lot of times in these moments of quarantine, in these moments of pandemics, what is really in a person is coming out. I want to see more Christians rise up and allow the joy of the Lord to be your strength. Because though everything may be stripped from us, our joy is not. Everything may be taken. Our season may be taken. Our school may be taken. People may have lost jobs, but no one can steal your joy. Joy comes from God, but the enemy, through circumstances, will attempt to steal your joy. It's your weapon. It's what people look at when they're like, man, how is that person so joyful? And then another thing is your story. We talked about this earlier. You have to be willing to share your story. Number 6 is if you're going to share your faith, you need to talk about Jesus a lot. Religion talks about what they know. Touch people talk about who they know. Religion talks about what they know, but people that have been touched by God's power and love and grace and have had an experience with the risen Jesus Christ talk about who they know. It is a personal experience. It is a personal relationship. You need to be careful with people that talk about what they know about God all the time. People that feel like they have everything figured out, you just need to be careful about them. I want to surround myself around people that talk about Jesus more than what they know. It says this in Acts 4:13. They were just ordinary men that spent time with Jesus. They were just ordinary men that spent time with Jesus. And finally, number 7, if you want to share your faith with people, don't get weary, don't give up. Don't get weary, don't give up. This is a long game faith. This is not a 6 months, 3 months, a year. There's been friends and people that I've been praying for years that have not come to faith. This is a long game. Have you ever experienced maybe you are the person that has played a sport and you just come out so pumped, so jacked, your heart rate is through the roof, you're excited, and then what happens around halftime is you die out because you came hot out of the gate. You came so fired up out of the gate. And then all the people around you had to do is just kind of wait for your heart rate and for that excitement to kind of die down. And then all of a sudden you lost focus, you lost control. Sharing your faith, walking with Jesus is not something that you achieve. It is a long game. A man by the name of Eugene Peterson said, obedience is a long walk in the same direction. Sharing your faith is the same thing. It's a long walk with the same people that you've been with. Some people will come to Jesus immediately. Some people years down the road. Your job is to plant seeds of love and faith and generosity into your community, into your schools, into your teachers, just sharing your life with people. And then other people may come, they may water that with their Christian faith, and all of a sudden something will happen in someone's life where they'll have the awareness of who Christ is because of what you have done. This is a long game faith thing. This is a long game thing. Lastly, I just want to remind you guys about this. We do not treat people like projects. You got friends that want to know Jesus. I love your hearts. Yes, so do I. But people know when you truly love them and then when you want to just treat them like a project. We don't treat people like projects. We're in this for the long haul. So if we're going to share our faith, don't get weary and don't quit. Let's jump into a conversation now, talking about how to share our faith on Let's Talk. We'll have the Zoom link up right after this. I would love to tell you personal stories about people that I've walked with and that I've seen come to faith and people that I'm still praying for, and then answer any questions that you have regarding how do you as a young person share your faith. I love you, View Weekly. I'll see you back here next week.
Nishi, hold up, give me a minute.